are located in the South Hilo district of Hawaii Island, more specifically in the Wainaku Ma'ulu area. The applicant's current proposed project includes plans to develop 51 total lots, including one approximately 2.11 acre lot to preserve a historic era cemetery. And then this is the area right above the park where there is the old cemetery that is being proposed to be preserved in place with this approximately 2.11 acre parcel.
You know that the 2.11 acres that will be set aside for the state historic preservation?
Yes.
Yeah. Who will be controlling that after if the rezoning is goes through?
So if you take a look at your recommendation for the change of zone, let me find the condition here. All of this comes from once the cemetery was identified on the property, there was an archaeological inventory survey done, and also a burial treatment plan done. SHPE has those documents. They have yet to review them, so we haven't gotten any comments back from them. There was also a matter of some violations because some of the headstones were damaged from clearing work. So part of the holdup from SHPE's side was they didn't want to review those documents until the violation was dealt with at the state level. Unfortunately, that's why this application came in 2017, and now we're only getting to it in 2019. We got to a point where we were told by SHPE that they were no longer pursuing the violation, and so we decided to move forward with this. But the condition we added in was to make sure that conditions of that AIS and any subsequent study that would be done, whether that's the burial treatment plan or a preservation plan, be added into the subdivision. And one of those requirements was to set aside an area for preservation in place.
Right now the trust owns that, right?
Correct.
Now, right? Okay, so their wish is to convey that to, to state, or they're gonna continue to hold it for.
I believe, and maybe the owner's representative can address that,
Okay.
but I believe it will just stay in ownership of whomever owns the property, but the requirements to keep it preserved
Yeah, I see.
and allow descendants to come and visit and things like that are all part of the AIS and subsequent preservation plans. So they would all be required to adhere to those requirements moving forward, regardless of who owns it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will they be submitting some kind of plan on a preservation plan, how they're going to preserve it?
So that's what remains to be seen. Because SHPE has yet to review the original archaeological inventory survey, they can't make their recommendations for next steps. Our understanding is the recommendation will be some kind of preservation plan, and the preservation plan will lay out interim mitigation steps as well as long-term mitigation steps, and so that will be done subsequently. And the way the condition reads, just to make sure it's all done prior to any work on the property, is prior to issuance of any land alteration permits, the applicant and successors or assigned shall secure approval of an archaeological inventory survey by the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, State Historic Preservation Division, and implement interim preservation mitigation measures as may be recommended for the rezoned area. Moreover, prior to or as part of the issuance of final subdivision approval, the applicant shall implement mitigation measures for the historic area cemetery as recommended by the AIS and directed by SHPE. So essentially, we wanted to build in the requirement that prior to any more land alteration, they had to install the interim mitigation measures, and then before we finalized subdivision approval, they had to basically agree to and implement the long-term mitigation measures.
As the staff pointed out, if you're going to, let's assume that this subdivision, just for the sake of discussion, is granted final approval as is right now. So whoever owns the cemetery lot will still be the developer. So the developer then has to decide on like what he or she wants to do, whether he wants to attempt to convey it to the county, convey it to the community association within the subdivision, or to convey it to some other entity. About over the last 6 weeks, I've had some discussions with Council Member Val Poindexter, and so she mentioned that there is an organization in the Hamakua area that has taken it upon themselves to kind of do caretaking of a lot of these plantation type of cemetery, and so this could possibly be one of those that would be kind of like an adopted cemetery, because it's really like in a state of disrepute right now. And that's the reason why I think when there was some mechanical equipment in that area, there's some bamboo groves and large trees. So Mr. Olson had agreed to let one of these guys do some interim farming in that area. So a excavator was put in that area, to remove a lot of these the trees and the bamboo groves. And during the process of doing that, at least like 4 or 5, I think some of the headstones were kind of like knocked over because they couldn't see it. But so that's like, as the staff had indicated, it is now a situation between the State Historic Preservation Division and actually like Mr. Olson, because he still owns the property. Specifically on that, SHPD had requested the land board to fine the landowner in violation of like certain state statutes, because of this inadvertent desecration. They were supposed to go before the land board in December of 2017. It was agendized. It was never considered. It was kind of like withdrawn. And then it was back again on the agenda the next month in January. At that time also it was withdrawn. And at that time, Mr. Olson and his attorney became aware of the situation. So they had a separate meeting with the SHPD director and their attorney. And at that time, Mr. Olson explained the circumstances behind it. And so SHPD division chief basically said, okay, we'll look into it. And it's been over a year and nothing has happened. And the attorney basically informed me, and then as well as I conveyed that information to the staff, that as far as they're concerned, they did as much as they could. The ball right now is in the state's court, and whatever the state said, then they'll have to comply with. But to add to that, there is an archaeological inventory survey done of the property, although, for all intents and purposes, the only feature on the property is really like the cemetery, because the rest of the land was used for some form of agriculture, primarily like sugarcane. So the archaeological inventory survey is still kind of stuck at SHPD for over 2 years. And in the meantime, Mr. Olson had contracted the same archaeological consultant to prepare a preservation plan. So there is a preservation plan already, but it's not approved. And it can't be approved until, chronologically, and from a procedural standpoint, you have to have the inventory survey approved, and then you can act on the preservation plan. I mean, that's the protocol that they go through, but they have that plan already prepared. So we have, in that preservation plan, there is like a buffer indicating, how wide it should be. But we don't know ultimately what size it'll be, whether it will be 2.11 acres as kind of shown on the map, or something larger or smaller. So very definitely the layout that you see on there, based on the staff's condition and what we have to go through relative to the cemetery, it's not going to look like that. And I think it'll be better in the long run.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant's representative?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. In regards to the headstones, has any of the families come forward that you know of?
All I have is just the information that the archaeologist provided us, and then the short answer was no. Because, it seems like there's no, I guess, like entity or individuals that frequent that area and clean it up. And that's the reason why it was very difficult, I think, to see the extent of the cemetery. And if you go up and down the coast, a lot of these plantation communities, you're going to find a lot of these cemeteries. And so, but as far as the preservation program, I don't know whether they need to find descendants of the descendants of, those who are buried there and then try to make contact. I know if you have a burial treatment plan, you have to make some effort to do that. But the short answer to your question is that no.
The cemetery, okay, I was born and raised on Amaulu Camp 4, okay? We go all the way up to Camp 5. Until my dad died in 57, World War II veteran, because of his injuries. When he died, they closed up a lot of the camps. And as to why they closed it up, I don't know. But only Camp 1 was where I lived with my grandma after my grandpa died, my dad died. Now the thing about it is that graves that's all over there, when I came back from Vietnam, there's a 1 minute thing. Okay, when I came back from Vietnam, we were closing out a lot of the camps, and one of them was Camp 1, the last one. And the graves on the lower side, where you're looking at right now, a lot of the bodies were exhumed. Now, where did they go? Are they stashed somewhere? Were they planted over in Alai Cemetery? Where? Where did they go? Okay, a lot of the people from the camps, Camp 1 all the way up to Camp 5, as well as Poeo, utilized that area. When I seen the banyan tree, not a banyan tree, but a monkey paw tree cut down, and then realized that some of the bodies were exhumed, I'm not sure if it was family members or what, but unless you put notice into the paper that states, you need anybody that might be descendants of the gravesite and stuff like that, please come forward. So the bodies not bodies, but the gravesite can be identified or something, okay? And not only that, I don't know how SHPED can become involved without the Big Island Burial Council being involved, as well as NAGPRA. And this is an act, this federal act, North American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. All these people got to be involved. Not only that, I believe jurisdiction is under the state Department of Land and Natural Resources. They have to be also consulted, as well as the Ahamoku Council, which is legislated by the state of Hawaii legislature, and it's, I forget what act they're under.
I was just kind of like, in response to whether there were public notices on the cemetery portion, there was this, preservation plan that was prepared and submitted in conjunction with the application. And I was scanning through it, and then there was a public notice about the burials. I think it was published in November of 2016. It's found in your packet.
Thank you.